Hello and welcome to the I Am Woman project, where every week we have deep, thought-provoking and interesting conversations with thought leaders, change instigators, rule breakers and creative minds who think differently, sparking creativity and inspiration. Our special guests on our show cover a variety of topics just for you, and they share their personal stories to inspire, motivate and empower you, our listener. The I Am Woman podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at www.catherineplano.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favourite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. Today we have the power woman, Sharryn Napier. Sharryn is the Director of Clicks Australia and New Zealand, an influential leader shaping the organisational diversity culture from the top. Sharryn has over 15 years experience in the IT industry and has held very senior positions at several global companies such as Serena, CA Technologies and Deloitte. Sharryn believes that you have to really work hard to get what you want and to never give up on your dreams. As you will hear in this interview, Sharryn has an abundance of energy. She is persistent, tenacious, and has a lot of resilience. Sharryn is also big on believing in yourself to do whatever you really set your focus and mind on. However, to always keep your feet on the ground and to remember that we are all equal, no matter if you are the cleaner or the MD of any organisation. As you will hear, Sharryn truly cares for every individual she encounters. So sit back, tune in and enjoy. Okay, Sharryn, welcome to I Am Woman Project. How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So just before we came onto the show, we're having a bit of a chat about your interesting career. If you would like to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself so that our listeners get to understand exactly who Sharryn is.
Sure, no problems. I'm Sharryn Napier, and I'm the Managing Director and the Regional Business Owner for Australia and New Zealand for a software company.
Okay, and tell us how you got into that. How did you get into IT?
Oh, it sort of was a bit of a long story. I didn't actually start in IT, and I actually had no background in technology at all. When I was at school, actually when I left school, I was going to be a chiropractor. And when I didn't get the marks to go to the university that I wanted to, a girlfriend's mother said to me, "Why don't you do business?" And I was pretty much doing nothing at the time, so I thought, why don't I do business? So I went off and did my business degree, and I ended up starting in marketing. And I wasn't overly impressed with marketing. It was okay, but the sales guys in the business that I worked in at the time seemed to be having a little bit more fun than what the marketing guys did. So I moved very quickly into sales, and I ended up over a couple of years becoming the general manager of that company. And it was a supply chain company, so it was manufacturing and distribution along the supply chain into retail. Very much a male-dominated industry, and I did that for quite a long time. And about 14 years ago, IT was becoming a really big buzz sort of thing to be in. And as I said, I had no IT background, but it seemed really interesting. And so I completely changed my career and I went back into frontline sales in IT. And the rest sort of is history.
I've got a little bit of background in IT, and it's a very different environment, isn't it? Very fast-paced and very male-dominant. How did you cope in that particular environment?
I think that they're not so much the male domination, even though at the time, it was nice when I was younger. But, I think that the fast pace was what got me. I think that's the reason why I actually went into sales in the beginning. It was that absolutely always changing, incredibly dynamic, fast pace, lots of energy every day. And that I was sort of quite hyperactive just generally, and I think I still pretty much am. And I think that energy was something that I saw in the IT market, and I think that that's what really attracted me. And it hasn't let me down. Every single day is, it's another hill to run up, and it's something different, and it's, extremes of every type you could possibly think about. So it's that very dynamic environment, and I think that is actually what attracts a lot of people to the industry.
And it's quite a competitive market too, isn't it?
Oh, massively.
It's not an easy market, I don't think, anyway.
No, and I think competition is getting more prolific with cloud and all those sorts of different offerings that are coming into the space. You can be a startup and you can be incredibly successful very quickly. And there's certain parts of the industry that are really booming, and one is obviously business intelligence, and that's one of the things that is now attracting a huge amount of startups and a huge amount of competition.
Sharryn, you sound like you've got lots of energy. So how does Sharryn has downtime?
I don't think Sharryn has downtime. And not in the sitting down and looking at my navel sort of downtime, but I think my downtime is getting rid of the rest of my energy. So I'm a very energetic sort of person, as far as, I'm always on, which I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. I do go to the gym pretty much every day. I cycle a lot. I run. I snow ski. I do bike races. I used to do mountain bike racing up until probably 2 years ago. So I was competitive in that, and I became, in my age category, I was the national champion for mountain biking, which was interesting. And so I keep very, very active outside of work, and I think that keeps my mind really sharp, but it also helps me sort of settle my energy for the next sort of day.
Wow. I'm just trying to pick up my jaw off the ground. I'm just thinking, how do you what's your secret? How do you have all this energy?
I don't know. I suppose I've been very competitive all my life. I was a gymnast at school, and I was a national champion, and I was a classical ballet dancer for about 15 years before I went to university. And I think that the disciplines that those sorts of sports sort of, you thrive on that sort of discipline and that perfection and the execution. And I think that's it's a very energetic sort of thing.
Yeah. And do you think that's got anything to do with your working environment? Because I know for myself, when I'm listening to you, I think that I was, when I was working in a corporate environment, and you do, it's that fast pace, it kind of sort of has an on-flow effect in your personal life. So, I was also very active in that kind of environment. But I have to say that when I moved out of that environment, I definitely slowed down a lot. Do you think it has anything to do with the fast-paced environment that you're currently in?
I think it does. I think that it's a mindset. I think that if you have that sort of motivation to, go and exert a serious amount of energy riding a 200-kilometre race or, 50 kilometres in the bush sort of thing, I think if you have that energy, you invigorate the environment that you're in. So my team here are very young. And for me, that's a great thing because, I very much like to watch people be successful around me, and that sort of the energy that I've got is sort of quite infectious. And I think that the team here basically draw a lot on that and sort of, buy in on that energy and get excited and get driven and all that sort of stuff. So I actually think that it has a flow-on effect. My husband, it exhausts him. But, I'm sure it invigorates all my team that I'm with every day.
And you sound so down to earth. And I really do believe that really when you have one of those leaders that are always, upbeat, energetic, it does it's contagious. It rubs off on you a little bit.
Yeah. And look, I'm lucky because I've had some really great mentors over the years, and I had a really good business coach, and you know, I've always been really, I've been extroverted, but I think I'm very extroverted now. I think it's a level of confidence you get sort of as you age, and as you do things and that you're successful. And I just think that, that sort of whole dynamic is something that, it is very infectious. And, people want to be part of something that is exciting. If we're doing a big deal or something like that, then, people want to really get involved because it's exciting and we're having fun and, we're playing around a bit and all that sort of stuff. So I think that it does actually, it does bring people along with you.
I think, Sharryn, that's what you create. You create that space for other people to have fun, because I've worked with lots of organisations and not all of them function at that level.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. So, Sharryn, what drives you?
I think that, I look back on things and sort of go, I've been very successful and I've had some fabulous people help me along the way. I think that the thing that really drives me now is watching the people that I coach and mentor and sponsor and, in my business, watching them be successful. That's really, to me, it's like, I said this the other day to one of the guys, it's like a really proud mother sitting on the sideline watching their children play sport. You're so excited and so proud and all of that sort of stuff. That's sort of the feeling that I get when I see my people being really successful. So I think that what drives me is to see them successful. It might sound like a bit of a cliche, but that's really what does get me up in the morning.
Well, that's just signs of a great leader, if you ask me. I mean, if that's how you get inspired is by your people, that just shows that, when you think about it, it's organisations are run by people. So,
yeah.
And if we focus on our people, that's where the success comes into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with the benefits of hindsight, what would you have done differently in your life or career?
I think in reflection, I probably would have had more children. That's one thing. I only have one son. But I think what's probably the most important thing is that, I didn't find out till very late in my career that I was really good at what I did. And I remember my business coach working with me for quite a while, and I saw her a number of years later, and her and I are personal friends, and she sort of said to me, we were talking generally, and I said, I'm doing this. And I said, and I'm really good at this. And she sort of looked at me and in a bit of a shock, and she said, I worked for so many years to hear you say that you think you're good at something. I think denial of how good you are of something is a very female trait. I think it's something that we as women don't sing our own praises, and we don't tell people that we're actually really good at something that we really are. And I wish I had have been able to do that earlier, because, I'd probably be running for Prime Minister and probably would have got elected given the recent things. But, I think that belief in myself, I would have loved to have got that earlier.
It's so great to hear you say that. And, sometimes some of us women never get to that. So it makes me so happy to hear you say that, because it's true. I have a lot of, I've worked in a lot of corporations for the last 22 years and also have a lot of corporate clients, and it's so true. Like women, there's this whole denial of, and self-worth, I think too. And you don't see enough women in leadership roles or in executive roles. And I think that when these opportunities present, they tend to think about it, whereas men jump into it and they'll worry about how to do it later. But women tend to sit back and go, is this really for me? Am I good enough? And sometimes, and especially if you're a mother too, you're kind of torn between, I'm a mother of one too, and I was a single mother for about 11 years. So climbing the corporate ladder, there's guilt attached to that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took on an international role. I was running Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, China, Korea, India, and Japan. And I did that for about 10 years. And I missed really 10 years of my son growing up. And the guilt that actually, my ex-husband stayed at home with my son, but the guilt that I carried with me all the time was incredible. But you sort of, it's that whole struggle between, your career and, your child. And my ex-husband stayed at home with my son. So I felt a lot more comfortable that, it wasn't someone else looking after him. But I used to put myself through absolute hell being away. And I was away a lot. I was away, in some months I'd be away 3 weeks. Yeah. So, it's really, I think women that have, I've got some of my senior team here have got young children. And when they want to work from home, I'm good with that, and, some of them work from home twice a week anyway, just generally. But, we've had 6 babies here in the last 12 months. So it's a very family-orientated environment, and I encourage that. And, it's one of those things that, having that environment, you are able to be successful. I've got, my marketing director, she's incredibly talented, but she's still trying to get to the I'm really good at what I do sort of thing. She's got a young child, she's a single mum, all that sort of stuff, and she's amazing. And I keep telling her that. So, it is a very, very challenging environment.
Yeah, and I think that, as I know, as I'm listening to you, you do. I think that, as my son got older, and definitely when he turned 21, I had those kind of conversations about me feeling guilty that I couldn't be there at school when they had mothers come over with cakes and things like that, because I was always, working really hard. So, but I think as they get older, they get to understand that you did what you did and you did the best you could with the information you had at that time. So I'm sure that, they're very forgiving.
Oh, they are. And, My son is my best friend. He's sort of, he's 21, so he'll be 21 in November. And he just, we get on so well. And he doesn't feel like he missed out on anything, because the time, people talk about quality and quantity, but it's true. If you have really, really good quality time, if you don't have a lot of time with your kids, just as long as it's, outstanding when you have it, then that's the most important thing. And that's what they remember. And they remember that you love them. And that's, fundamentally, that's all you need to give them.
And that's it. That's so true, isn't it? And it's like the things that we feel guilty about. Like, I know that when I've had those conversations with my son, he doesn't even remember some of the things. So it's all in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm speaking to myself here, by the way. Yeah. So, Sharryn, what's the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
I think it's something that I also told my son when he was very young. And it was a number of years ago in 2007. And I stepped into quite a big job running the region. I've never, ever worked internationally in my life. And I was reporting to head of worldwide, which was out of the US. And after a couple of months, he said to me, you got to believe that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I sort of, it's one of those things about confidence as well. But I really sort of took that and thought, if I look back on the stuff that I've done some pretty amazing things. And he's probably right. If I really want to make, what I'm doing successful, I just have to believe that I can. And I did, and I was very successful and am very successful. And, I suppose I told my son that when he was very little, and he tells me now at his age, I can do anything I want, Mum. You always used to tell me that. And I think that knowing that I can do it, knowing that I have the confidence, I suppose, believe in myself, that I can do things and I can do anything. I think that's sort of the thing.
God, what an amazing role model you are. Imagine what your son's going to be.
He's a plumber.
He's a plumber. But
He's a very good plumber.
Imagine, and it doesn't mean they're going to, my son's also a plumber. So isn't that funny? I just think that he works in big constructive sites, but he's doing his last year apprenticeship now. But, I hear him speak very similar to, some of the things that I've spoken to him about. And I hear him say it to his friends. Yeah. Like, for example, one of his friends will say he had a bit of a car accident. Well, not just a bit of a car accident. He had a car accident. Yeah. And he said, see, I'm just bad luck. And I heard my son say, so if you believe you're a bad luck and if you think that way, then guess what? It's exactly what you will bring into your life. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like me. It sounds like mini me.
It's scary, isn't it? Yeah, Matt's exactly the same.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great. So what's your greatest lesson that you have ever learned?
I don't think that things come your way unless you work really, really hard. I think that there's people that, fall into things and sort of, are successful for a short period of time, but it's people that, I've worked really, really hard. And I never, ever give up on what I'm trying to actually get to. So, if I have a dream or if I'm, wanting to get to something, then I don't give up. I'm incredibly tenacious about what I want to do. And I think that that's what I've learned is working hard and tenacity gets you to whatever you want to be.
It's really interesting you hear you saying that because that was one of my beliefs too, and I find myself still today work really, really hard, and I see that it runs in the family almost. I see my brother and my sister do the same thing, and my parents, they came to Australia. It was just it's almost it's part of our DNA.
Yeah.
And my husband said to me one day, he says, if you think that you've got to really work hard to get what you want out of life, then that's what you need to do. Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting because I'm hearing you're saying that you actually have to work really hard to get what you want and to be persistent. And that's how I think.
Yeah.
But then there's that other, I guess the flip side of that is, it's about working smarter, not so much harder. So it's, and I'm practicing that at the moment. I'm practicing not working so hard because to be honest, I've come to a point in my life this year where I want to simplify my life a little bit because I feel like I have worked so hard for such a long time.
We must be the same age. Yes. I'm exactly the same. I really, I haven't lost my enthusiasm or my energy. I think I've reached a point where I've realised that I don't have to do everything. It's, it's that whole ability to delegate when you've actually been such a high performer is a really, really difficult thing. It's a very difficult thing to learn when you've been a control freak, for your success sort of thing. And I think getting to that point where you sort of go, I'm actually going to delegate some of this stuff because firstly, it's the right thing to do because it makes other people grow. But secondly, because I don't have to do everything all the time anymore because there's, you bring some great people up with you and you then, giving them more responsibility and more autonomy and stuff like that, it elevates yourself away from a lot of the stuff that you would normally do. So it gives you a little bit of breathing space. But it helps them as well, I think.
And I think that's a really good point. What you bring up is, and I'm relating to. I think we're very similar, very controlling in that sense that I felt like I needed to do everything to get it completed, and it's probably in the last 3-4 years where I've learnt to delegate and let go and just understand that I don't, I'm a generalist, as I was saying before. I'm not an expert in everything, and I never call myself an expert because I'll never stop learning. But it's about, I think, collaborating and I think once you step back and allow other people to, give them the space to shine, it also allows you to be a mentor and a coach for others as well, which sounds somewhat like what you're doing. You're very much inspired by your people, but it sounds like you're also mentoring and coaching your people as well.
Yeah, and that's what it's one of those things that don't solve the problem, ask someone how they think they would. It's just being able to not jump in all the time. And that's how you're going to best coach your people to be better and think more broadly and also themselves be more successful because, they're actually solving problems themselves and doing things themselves, and the great thing is that you develop a amazing, leadership team underneath you that is incredibly competent. A couple of years ago when I reached this point with my leadership team, I went on holidays and it was the first time in 10 years I didn't check emails because I knew that the team had the whole thing sorted. And if there was, a major fire burning, someone would call me. But I came back from holidays and it was all fine. And, that was actually a really confronting thing for me. But it was incredibly satisfying because I realised that I'd actually built this amazing team that inspire me, but they're so talented and they're fantastic. And, I'm very, very blessed to have them, but, it's part of what, I've been involved with as far as helping them along the journey to get them there. That's, ultimately resulted in me having, I suppose a bit of time off.
And, I'm listening to you and I'm kind of cringing because I remember when I went away for a week with my husband and he said, no emails, no phone. And we call it the crack phone. And I was like, really? He goes, your team will be fine. Everyone will be fine. And honestly, it took me a week to actually get over it. And to not check my phone. And then just after that week, we came back and I got into it. But it took me a whole week to actually let go. Did you get the same thing? Did you find it really hard to just let it go?
Oh, I did. And the good thing is that we went away to a private island and we got to the island and they said, oh, the reception's not very good here. If you want reception, you've got to go down to the gift shop or whatever. So, of a morning, you'd see all these senior executives standing around the gift shop with their iPads and their phones and stuff, getting their emails downloaded and all this sort of stuff. And there was a telecommunications tower in the next island, which the next day had a fire on it, and the tower actually burnt down. And we had nothing. We had no phone network at all for about, it was about 5 days and it was fantastic. So, it was very difficult, but I got very used to it quite quickly when I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, well, that was a sign, wasn't it?
It was.
Let everything go.
Absolutely.
So, Sharryn, what keeps you up at night? You don't seem like you worry too much.
I do. I think that there's a cadence in the business around performance. And, I think years ago, businesses used to look at performance over a year and then it became, business over half years and then, performance over a quarter. And now there's very much a monthly focus on performance and being, sort of delivering, sort of results and big results every month. Mm. And so, coming into the end of the month and end of the quarter, and the volume of things that go on. So, my business has grown from 20 people to almost 100 in 3 years. And the volume that has changed with that growth, it's just, going to sleep and waking up in the middle of the night and thinking, oh, that's right, I've got to do those things and I've got to tell those things to other people and I've got to get these emails out and I've got to organise that thing and I've got to write these proposals. And they're the sorts of things that your mind doesn't sort of stop. And I suppose they're the things that are ongoing and they don't seem to ever sort of they don't seem to lessen at all.
Yeah, I have to say that I have related to the exact same thing, and I think that for me, I have this little checklist. Like I can, if there are things that are repetitive, sort of end of month or quarter, whatever that may be, a little checklist so that I don't have to lie in bed thinking about it, because otherwise, and somebody taught me that actually, that to empty the thoughts in your mind is to write it down so that you can actually, every time if you're lying there thinking about all this stuff, just write it down. So you're emptying your head, and then when you're actually lying on the pillow, then you've got nothing else to think about and you'll go to sleep.
Okay, I'm taking notes now.
But having a checklist, like if it's, especially if it's a one that you have to do all the time, it's just a matter of like tick tick tick, I've done that, or it's just there for you to do anyway.
Yeah, no, I've adopted the sticky note on my monitor and up my wall philosophy. So rather than writing myself long lists now, I write single things on sticky notes, and as I do them, I tear them off my computer and throw them in the bin. So I'm, visually producing results because I'm getting rid of the sticky notes, but it's all right in front of my face. So I actually, I do have sticky notes at home which when I'm in the bathroom, I write on my sticky notes and bring them to work.
Oh, Sharryn, we are so similar. I've got bright pink, yellow, green, blue ones. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a sticky note queen.
Excellent. I am too.
Yeah. So, Sharryn, who's been your greatest influence?
I've probably had two people, and I've mentioned them both already. The guy that I used to report to in the US, he was based in California, and I was running Asia Pacific and Japan. And he was the guy that basically told me that I could do anything that I set my mind to. And he and I are still great friends. Actually, I only spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. And probably my other biggest influence is my business coach. And she was sort of my business coach for a couple of years, but she became a really close personal friend. And I recently got married again about just over a year ago, and she stood up and spoke at our wedding. And, you know, she's one of those sorts of people that she was the one that made me believe that I was actually good at things, and made me realise like how good I really was at some things. So not at all, but, you know, of some things. But yeah, you know, so they're probably the two people that fundamentally changed my direction or the speed at which I went forward.
Oh, how beautiful. I love the fact that now you guys are friends. It's just gorgeous. You'd never hear that. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very, very blessed, I think.
Yeah. So we always love to ask our women of inspiration, if you had to pick one word that best describes your personal brand, what would that be?
Oh, tenacious. I think that's what, you know, when people describe me, that's sort of what they say. I'm tenacious.
Yeah, I can see that now that I've actually gotten to know you a little bit. Absolutely. That's definitely your word, tenacious. So when we wrap up, and we are about to wrap up now, we always ask that our women of inspiration share 3 golden nuggets that they would like to give to our listeners. So what would be your 3 golden nuggets?
I think there's sometimes a desire to go floating in the clouds when you're successful. I think keeping your feet well and firmly planted on the ground, no matter how successful you are, is really, really important. It provides you an ability to be authentic, and it also provides you ability to help other people be successful. So I think being very grounded is one thing. Definitely believing in yourself. So I talked about, you know, having confidence and believing that you can do anything that you want. I think that's a really, really key thing. And I sort of mentioned the word authentic before, but I think being like truly caring for people and the people that you're the custodian of. So in my business, you know, I have a lot of people here that, you know, people have their ups and downs and their, you know, personal problems and family issues and all that sort of stuff. So being authentic in that environment, you know, I think is really, really important. So there's probably my 3 things.
I love the one about keeping your feet on the ground, and that just shows, you know, that to me, that's so you're so down to earth. And I think that sometimes, you know, especially the higher up you get, especially in the corporate environment, ego can get in the way, and you know, and sometimes I think that has an impact on how you lead a team.
Yeah.
So I really do like that one.
Yeah, I honestly and genuinely think those 3 things are the things that have been the secret to my success.
Sharryn, it's been such a pleasure to getting to know you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And obviously we'll have all your social media handles and everything on I Am Woman Project. And once again, thank you for your time, your energy. It's been wonderful.
Oh, Catherine, it's been absolutely delightful. I really appreciate the time that you've given me.
No, thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
That brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed the show, as it is my mission to reach out and inspire as many individuals like you. And one of the best ways to help us achieve this goal is by giving us a good review on iTunes. It's easy and it only takes about 10 seconds. If you have any questions or special guests that you would like to hear from, please send us an email to support@catherineplano.com.au and we will get right back to you. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook @Catherine Plano. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Until next week, please take care.